Hello everyone, and welcome to my Days of Our Lives official channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Konstantin orders John to commit suicide. At the DiMera house, Johnny and Chanel partook in a warm night enclosed by covers before the chimney. The couple discussed their forthcoming wedding. Johnny conceded that he was stressed over his family's battles with relationships, and he proposed that it was a good thing on the off chance that he and Chanel didn't get hitched. Chanel was confounded by Johnny's abrupt protection from marriage, and she said that adoration and trustworthiness would be sufficient to hold the couple together. In light of what Chad had told Johnny, Chanel wondered if he was reconsidering marriage. Johnny said that he had no qualms, however he reviewed that Chanel had picked Allie over him 2 years sooner. Chanel blamed Johnny for stressing that she liked to accompany ladies. Although Johnny admitted that he wondered if he would be sufficient for Chanel, he did not question Chanel's sexual orientation. Chanel requested that Johnny pay attention to her. "I'm prepared to concede to one individual, and you are that individual, you, all right? What's more, no other person. You safeguarded me, in any event, when we weren't together. Furthermore, you have shown me, in 1,000,000 ways, that I am enough for you. Also, indeed, Johnny, you are enough for me. All that could possibly be needed until the end of time. I love you so much," Chanel promised. "I love you, as well," Johnny answered, and he and Chanel kissed. Johnny and Chanel then playfully ran out of the room and raced upstairs to get in a relationship. Abe and Paulina were in love and laid in bed at their penthouse. "You realize the beneficial thing about losing my memory? I get to become hopelessly enamored with you once more," Abe expressed energetically as Paulina grinned. Abe noticed that it had been some time since he and Paulina had intercourse, and he stressed that he had disheartened Paulina, considering that he was unable to recollect what she had and hadn't enjoyed. Paulina said that she had delighted in having intercourse with Abe, and she added that she wanted to remain in bed until the end of time. Abe reasoned that Paulina was worried about the surgery she was about to have. Paulina conceded that she was concerned, and she said that lying with Abe had made her fail to remember her concerns. Abe promised to accompany Paulina constantly in the long stretches of time to come. Paulina communicated her bliss to have Abe back in their bed. Abe whispered that he would stay up all night with Paulina just to talk and stated that he was there for her. Paulina, who had fallen asleep in his arms, caught Abe's eye. While Abe was holding Paulina, he gave her a forehead kiss. At the Salem Hotel, Everett and Stephanie were flooded with joy after they had intercourse. Everett said that he had longed for being with Stephanie once more. Stephanie said that it had been difficult to prevent herself from running into Everett's arms when she'd looked at him again months sooner. They requested room administration and ate when the food was conveyed. Everett said that he adored Stephanie and that he'd never let her go. When Everett mentioned the possibility of moving in together, Stephanie was taken aback. The idea was rejected by Stephanie. She said there was compelling reason need to rush things. Everett gave his approval, and he and Stephanie got ready to get back together. Wendy made a joke to Tripp about Ava while sitting at a table in Horton Town Square. She added that Ava had cornered her and cautioned her not to make Tripp extremely upset. Tripp apologized that Ava had called Wendy out. Tripp added that he was worried that Ava was investing more energy with Stefan, and he stressed that Stefan was utilizing Ava. As they arranged to head home, Tripp and Wendy recognized a banner that made inhabitants aware of Wendy's impending geocaching occasion. Ava and Stefan had sex in bed at the apartment of Wendy and Tripp. They concurred it had been a major dag-nab botch. Stefan moaned about that he had deceived Gabby. Ava and Stefan said that nobody might at any point gain proficiency with reality with regards to their tryst. Stefan said he had more to lose assuming that the fact of the matter was at any point uncovered. Stefan derived that Ava cherished Harris. Ava contemplated that it didn't make any difference. As Ava and Stefan looked for Stefan's shirt in the front room of the loft, Tripp and Wendy got back to find Stefan shirtless. Stefan was warned by Tripp to keep his hands off Ava as he became enraged. Tripp undermined Stefan when he said that Stefan would lament contacting Ava assuming Stefan repeated the experience. In the recreation area, John requested that Konstantin let him know what he had some awareness of the pawn. At the point when Konstantin started provoking John about recollections John couldn't remember, John threatened to use a weapon on Konstantin. Konstantin said that John had once attempted to kill Konstantin before a lady named Katerina had disrupted the general flow. Konstantin then created the pawn. At the point when John gazed at the card, he dropped his weapon in no time flat. After that, Konstantin had a flashback to Greece from a long time ago. As a montage of pictures of the Greek wide open showed up on screen, Konstantin made sense of how he had first developed to know John. You came to convey a message of death. My wonderful Katerina. John, somebody should pay for that, Konstantin said. Konstantin requested John to move a garbage bin toward him. John got in line, and Konstantin sneered and giggled as he requested John to do more modest things. Let's try something more risky, Mr. Black, shall we? Konstantin said. Konstantin set the firearm in John's grasp, and he requested John to put the weapon to John's head and to pull the trigger. John slung the gun over his head. Stop. Not today. You will fill a need. You will be Konstantin's pawn, and I will have retribution for my Katerina. However, not yet. You'll return to your wonderful family. Also, in 10 seconds you will get back to what your identity is, Mr. Dark, Konstantin said as he showed the pawn to John once more. After Konstantin had left, John glanced around and seemed befuddled by his environmental elements. Konstantin enacts the pawn, promptly places John in grave peril on Days. In the Monday, February 5th episode of Days of Our Lives, John furtively got together with Konstantin, who claimed to be a client. Rather than an innocuous meeting, this communication brought about the enactment of the pawn. In addition, it was made clear why Konstantin was so interested in the pawn. John, Drake Hodgson, questioned Konstantin, John Capellos, about what he knew about the pawn during the heated standoff. At first, Konstantin merely mentioned that the pawn altered his entire situation. Frantic to figure out more, John threatened to use a weapon on his most recent foe. Frantically begging him to inform him everything regarding the pieces of his past he can't recollect. Sadly, Konstantin didn't withdraw. Before long, Victor's close buddy took out that extraordinary card that he'd been clutching. He needed to understand what it implied. John couldn't offer him a verbal response. In any case, his activities said everything. Right away, John dropped the weapon and stood straight up. He was by all accounts in a daze or some likeness thereof. The pawn, activated. John still answered to the pawn, but no longer to his own name. Furthermore, Konstantin understood how this affected him. That he could at long last pursue his retribution for the pawn killing Katerina, somebody exceptionally unique to him. The conman made sense of how a long time back, in his old neighborhood of Aria, the pawn came to convey a message of death, and that is when Katerina passed on, when his life changed for eternity. Prior to letting the pawn go, Konstantin acknowledged he had all-out order of him while in this state. He even had John / the pawn hold his firearm up to his head. Be that as it may, he halted him prior to anything lethal could occur. He let John go yet guaranteed he would involve John as his pawn. That he filled a need and he will pursue retribution for what has been going on with Katerina. How this affects John and Steve. After Konstantin strolled off, John returned to his detects. This short communication will ideally kick this pawn story into overdrive. Because John, Steve, Stephen Nichols, and their families will undoubtedly turn into pieces in Konstantin's game of vengeance. Will the Black Patch detectives be able to get past the past to protect not only their present but also their future?